I'm Warren Saunders and I'm President of Global Sales at GfK. Well, I think the most important thing is to use data to challenge your existing processes and beliefs rather than to reinforce them. So think about how you use data to do things differently rather than to do things the same but maybe quicker or in a slightly different way. How does it change your business? And how can you adjust the way that you run on a day-to-day basis? I mean, clearly there are two main barriers to AI adoption. One is a technical one, and the second one is a cultural one. And I think the technical one can be overcome relatively easily. I think that organisations like GfK have the ability to roll these kind of services out to you in a browser-based format so that you can democratise them and get them out across your whole business. I think the cultural one is more of a challenge. There's a lot of organisations who are used to running their business with quarterly or maybe even annual cadences. And in a data-driven world, you have to be much more on the button and much quicker than that. And I think that takes a big leap in terms of the way that your organisation is structured and the way that your decisions are made within that organisation. Well, I think that's again a bit of a cultural shift, and I think it's a bit about empowerment. I think what the great thing about AI and the great thing about something like these kind of solutions, whether it's GfK or another, is that they're relatively easy to roll out very widely. So it's a great opportunity to democratize that data across the business, and rather than having data being controlled by a small kind of gatekeeper within the organization, it can go out to finance and supply chain and logistics. And marketing and sales, etc. And you can take that much more broadly, and that data can provide much more answers for a much broader range of answers for you than perhaps it has historically been doing. So I would encourage that kind of democratization. Go broad as quickly as you can. Data's a dangerous thing, There's a lot of it. In fact, there's too much of it. We're all drowning in data on a constant basis, and data can tell us kind of pretty much whatever we want to hear. And I'd make an analogy there to the personal environment where if you think about your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever, you tend to hear from like-minded people, or you connect to people with a similar set of beliefs and a similar set of values to yourself, and perhaps miss the wider story of what's going on. And I think that's true with data in a commercial sense as well. You need to look broad, but equally not too broad, because otherwise it just comes in too big and it just comes and becomes almost overwhelming. So I think you really need to be super focused on what's the question I'm answering, what is the issue that I need to address, and then where do I need to get that data from in order to answer that question. Well, I think clearly training's incredibly important. You'll already have people in your organisation, data analysts, marketing analysts, etc., or finance analysts who understand how to manage that data potentially, or certainly how to manage elements of that data. I think training more broadly is really important, and I think making sure that if you're getting a third-party solution, you're getting one that can be easily rolled out and that does deliver its insights in a relatively plain and simple way, so that the barrier to adoption is limited. And while there will be, of course, training and onboarding and all of those things required, hopefully you can get up to speed relatively quickly.
What's the first thing they should do?
I think of one question you want to answer. Kind of going back to something I said before, I think don't try and go too big at once. Take things a step at a time. Think about what thing would I change in my organisation if I could change something? Would it be a channel strategy? Would it be a pricing? Or would it be speed? Would it be analysis? There'll be one element maybe within your customer journey that you're unclear on or that you want to know more about. Pick that one and then go in and try and answer that, and then go broad from there. Because I think, if we all try and bite off too much at once, we all know what happens. We end up either with too shallow an insight across too broad a range of questions, or just overwhelmed. So, be laser focused about what it is you want to get out of the data, and limit that to one key area at least to start with. Browser-based is important, so put something in the cloud so that everyone can access it. I think the other thing that's really important is making sure that any insights served up from that data are done so in a really clear way, so that the language used is not confusing, and also that things are built around the kind of jobs to be done. So whether that's marketing, whether that's trade spend, whether that's sales or finance or whatever it is, make sure that the insights that you're getting, that layer of intelligence automation on top of whatever data set you're analyzing, is built around key business questions that you're answering. Again, being focused rather than too broad and too vague, and making sure that that's targeted at the right users within your organization. Historically, I would have argued that if the past can teach us anything, it's that it can teach us, what's going to happen in the future. Clearly, I would say that belief has been challenged in the last couple of years. So I think really, where AI becomes more and more important is being able to slice data much more finely. So whereas, if you were an organization making washing machines 5 years ago, you would probably have looked at what happened over the last year and use that to understand where you go next, and use that at quite a granular basic level. I think now, as consumer behavior is changing, channel strategies changing, pricing's changing, all sorts of things are changing. You've got sustainability coming through really, really strongly, really, really quickly. COVID has brought about a massive kind of step change in culture and in retailing and in consumer behavior. So I think using AI to thinly slice and really understand understanding what happened last week is as important as knowing what happened last year, because things are changing so fast now.